I remember standing on the balcony of the hotel, feeling the winter sun glint off the ocean below. My phone buzzed in my hand, and when I saw it was my son, Ethan, my chest tightened. There was a panic in his voice I hadn't heard in years. "The room keys weren't working," he said, asking me to come down and help. I glanced at the clock, exactly 10 a.m., the moment I had been waiting for. Down by the pool, my family laughed, unaware that I had paid for every room myself. They thought I was still the same woman who would fix everything, who would never say no. But not today. Today, I would show them that I was more than their convenience, more than their wallet. It's strange how quiet the hotel feels when you know something they don't. I took a slow breath, feeling the ocean breeze lift my hair, and I allowed a small smile. For so long, I had been the one bending, the one giving, the one excusing everyone's behavior. Now, the balance was about to shift. I wanted to savor the moment before the storm. As I sipped my coffee, memories came flooding back: how I had saved for this, how I had worked late nights sewing, baking pies, selling them at the Sunday market, everything just to make this week happen. The effort, the sacrifices, the quiet determination, it all led to this point. And soon, my family would learn that I was no longer invisible. I looked at the keys in my hand, feeling the weight of every dollar I had spent, every choice I had made for them. The truth was, I had always loved them fiercely, but love without boundaries had a cost. And today, they were about to see exactly what that cost could be. And as I set the coffee cup down, I asked myself quietly, wondering how long they had thought they could manipulate me, and if they had any idea how patient I had been, how carefully I had been waiting for this moment. It was almost time to make my move. My name is Maeve Thompson, and I am 65. I've been widowed for 4 years, living quietly in a small coastal town in Maine. Life has been steady, sometimes lonely, filled with baking pies for the Sunday market, sewing for neighbors, and keeping my home neat, even though it still echoes with laughter from years past. My eldest son, Ethan, is 38, married to Claire, and my younger son, Lucas, is 35, married to Brooke. Between them, I have 5 grandchildren, each bright and full of life. But it's Piper, Lucas's 17-year-old daughter, who often sits with me, listens to my stories, and notices when I'm quiet. A few weeks ago, Ethan called me with the idea of a family trip to a resort called Seabreeze Shore. For a moment, I felt that familiar warmth, the excitement of being included in family plans, the hope of reliving the good old days together. They wanted me in their plans, and for the first time in years, I felt young again. The catch, of course, was that I would have to pay the deposit up front. When I called the resort and heard the total, my heart sank. Half of $4,200 was due immediately, $2,100. My pension only gave me $800 a month. I had $50 in cash and a small emergency fund hidden away, nowhere near enough. But I wanted this week with my family so badly that I didn't let hesitation stop me. I sold my husband's wedding band, took every savings I had, and worked quietly, late into the nights, sewing and baking, until I had scraped together the deposit. Every sacrifice whispered the same promise: this was for love, for family, for a week of togetherness. I carried my light blue dress, the one Piper once said made me look younger, pinned on my mother's pearls, and stepped into the car that morning, feeling both excitement and a quiet unease I couldn't quite place. As we drove towards Seabreeze Shore, I felt a mixture of anticipation and a mother's protective vigilance. I couldn't shake the thought that sometimes, even when love is abundant, the people you care about might not see the effort behind it. I hoped, naively, that this would be the week of connection, laughter, and shared memories. But deep down, a small voice in my mind whispered that life often has its own plans. And as the white facade of the resort appeared in the winter sunlight, gleaming and inviting, I felt that familiar tension, the awareness that I had given everything. Yet perhaps not everyone would honor the gift. Little did I know, the next few hours would teach me a lesson about love, respect, and the quiet power of standing up for oneself. The morning we arrived at Seabreeze Shore, my heart lifted at the sight of the sparkling fountains and tall palms swaying in the ocean breeze. I carried my suitcase, feeling a mix of pride and nervous anticipation. Everything I had worked for, the deposits, the late nights, the pies, the small sacrifices, had brought me here. I wanted this to be a week of family, of laughter, of reconnection. But the moment I reached the reception desk, something felt off. I handed over the name on the reservation, confirmed the 5 suites for 7 nights, and waited to share the excitement with my family. Yet when I turned to look, they had disappeared toward the elevators, leaving only Piper at my side, the youngest among them. She radiated excitement, hugging me quickly and whispering that the pool was enormous. Her presence was a small comfort in the midst of my unease. It was then that Piper, hesitating but brave, showed me her phone. The group chat from Ethan's family told a story I wasn't prepared for. They had called the trip a free vacation, with no real consideration for my efforts, planning to dispute the charges later. My stomach twisted as I scrolled through their messages. The words were cruel, calculated, and dismissive. All the work, all the savings, even the wedding ring I had sold to make this happen, they had treated it as nothing. For a moment, I wanted to collapse, to feel the weight of betrayal press me down. But Piper's hand on my arm reminded me I didn't have to react in fear. I realized that this was the moment to stand firm, to decide that I would not be a victim of their disregard. I let myself feel the hurt, the anger, and then, with a quiet steadiness, I began to plan. Every memory of my late husband, every lesson from the years of raising my boys, every small act of patience and resilience I had learned, shaped the decisions I would make next. I understood now that love without boundaries could be dangerous, and that self-respect was worth more than any temporary discomfort or conflict. And so, standing in that bright, sunlit lobby, with the keys heavy in my hand and Piper close beside me, I made a promise to myself I would protect what was mine. I would honor my efforts, and I would do so calmly, without haste, and with the full measure of the dignity I had always carried quietly through life. I remember sitting quietly in my suite that first evening, the ocean stretching endlessly beyond the balcony, feeling the weight of everything settle into my chest. Betrayal had a sharp sting, but beneath it, I found a strange clarity. For decades, I had put others first, carried their burdens, smoothed over conflicts, but now, I realized I had the power to choose differently. I called the bank first, explaining the situation with my calm voice, detailing the risk that someone might try to dispute the charges. I could almost feel the shift in the conversation, the representative taking me seriously, noting the concern, acknowledging my authority. Then I contacted the hotel manager, a kind man named Miguel, and shared my worries. His reassurance, the way he listened without judgment, made me feel taller somehow. I wasn't pleading, I was asserting control. Finally, I reached out to a lawyer I had trusted for years. The conversation was heavy, but not frightening. I learned that what my family had planned could even fall under elder financial abuse. My choices mattered. My signature carried weight. My preparations, my diligence, my patience, they were all going to pay off. I spent hours planning the next day. I visualized the steps, imagining how each of my children would react when they discovered the rooms were inaccessible. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming dignity, protecting the effort and love I had poured into this trip. I requested the manager deactivate 4 of the 5 suites at 10 a.m. sharp, keeping only mine, the one I shared with Piper. By 11, the staff would inform the guests that any further stay required payment from them. As I signed the final documents, I felt a calm certainty settle over me. This was the moment where patience, resilience, and quiet strength converged. My family had underestimated me, thought I would silently carry their betrayal. But I had prepared. I had planned. And now I was ready. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I let my thoughts drift to Piper. Her trust, her small but unwavering support, reminded me why this action mattered. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was modeling integrity, self-respect, and boundaries for the next generation. And as the waves crashed softly against the shore outside, I realized that tomorrow, for the first time in years, I would write the story instead of being written into someone else's. The next morning, I woke early, long before the sun fully illuminated the bay. Piper was beside me, quietly sipping her hot chocolate, her eyes bright with both excitement and a little apprehension. We moved slowly through the suite, savoring the calm before the inevitable. I felt a mix of anticipation and a strange serenity. The storm was coming, but I was ready. By 10 a.m., the moment I had prepared for arrived. Downstairs, I imagined the faces of my children and their spouses as they approached the reception, expecting their rooms to be ready. When the keys failed, their confusion, frustration, and disbelief became immediate. Piper, who had become my confidant in all this, whispered that they didn't understand what was happening. I let the silence linger a moment longer than necessary, savoring the shift in control. I reminded myself that this wasn't about punishment. This was about clarity, boundaries, and respect. I reflected on the years I had been bending, giving, and excusing their behavior, and how silently I had endured the subtle dismissals and minor indignities. Now, I was the one making choices, deciding who would have access and who wouldn't. As they gathered near the front desk, faces flushed and eyes wide, I could feel the weight of their disbelief. They had assumed I would comply, that I would quietly absorb the inconvenience and disappointment. Instead, I held the authority. I let them see, in small, deliberate actions, that their plan had failed and that my presence and effort were not to be taken lightly. Piper squeezed my hand, a quiet affirmation that we were in this together. It was a lesson in patience, in calm resolve, in knowing your worth and standing for it. I watched as my family struggled to regain control, realizing for the first time that I could not be manipulated into carrying the consequences of their choices. And as I returned to my suite with Piper, the tension below gave way to a sense of quiet triumph. I hadn't yelled or demanded anything. I had simply claimed what was rightfully mine, asserting boundaries with dignity and clarity. The shift was palpable, not just for them, but for me. For the first time in years, I felt entirely in charge of my own story, confident that respect could be commanded without raising my voice. After the confrontation at the hotel, Piper and I moved to a smaller, more modest boutique hotel by the bay. There were no grand chandeliers or sprawling pools, but there was warmth in every detail, the scent of fresh bread in the lobby, the welcoming smiles of the staff, and the quiet sense that we belonged there. For the first time in weeks, I felt light, free, and at peace. We spent our days walking along the harbor, sharing fresh pastries at a corner cafe, and building small sandcastles on the beach. Each simple moment reminded me that joy doesn't come from luxury or opulence. It comes from honesty, respect, and choosing the company of those who truly care. Piper's laughter, her quiet presence beside me, became a balm for all the frustration and betrayal I had carried. I reflected on the lessons this experience had brought. Love without boundaries is not love, it is surrender. I realized that being generous and patient does not mean allowing others to take advantage of you. True respect must be mutual, and it is always within your power to define it. I had not ruined a family vacation. I had reclaimed my dignity, and in doing so, I had shown Piper the strength of standing firm, with grace and confidence. As the week unfolded, I found a quiet satisfaction in our shared freedom. We were not bound by expectations or manipulation. Instead, we were free to enjoy the time we had, unpressured, undistracted, and filled with gentle joy. And in those moments, I understood that the real victory was not in punishment or revenge, it was in honoring oneself, teaching the next generation about boundaries, and embracing life on our own terms. As our week by the harbor came to an end, I reflected on everything that had happened. The journey had been more than a vacation. It was a lesson in respect, boundaries, and the quiet strength that comes from standing up for oneself. I realized that protecting my dignity didn't make me selfish. It made me whole. Piper and I had shared laughter, simple joys, and meaningful conversations that reminded me that family isn't just about proximity or obligation. It's about love that honors and respects each person. I hope that anyone listening who has ever felt used or overlooked can take a moment to recognize their own worth. It's never too late to set boundaries, to reclaim your voice, or to step into the life you deserve. Sometimes, the most important gift we can give ourselves is permission to protect our heart, our time, and our energy. If this story resonated with you, I invite you to share it with someone who might need a reminder about the power of self-respect. And if you feel inspired, please like, comment, or subscribe so that we can continue building a community where honesty, dignity, and gentle strength matter. Remember, boundaries are love in action, and they can change everything.